they're worrying from what we already know. You've got the possibility of the driving of escape mutants, for which we know that we were getting escape mutants, and we don't know to what degree that is responsive to the vaccine, but it's at least quite plausible. And then we have the risk of ADE, which it turns out we don't have the signal for. So that's good news.
Yeah,
currently.
All right. So far. But that's great. Okay. So I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of like worries in this neighborhood that are,
The one that was unexpected is the coagulopathy associated with the adenovector.
okay.
That one was out of the blue. So the coagulation problems, which are almost one of the central hallmarks of COVID disease.
Right. So am I wrong to think that that's just more spike protein cytotoxicity?
I think it's a plausible hypothesis.
Okay. All right. So
Wait, which means
another obvious, more plausible hypothesis.
fail to come up with
I think it is the most compelling current hypothesis that I know of.
Okay. All right. So I think we have taken care of the big pieces of the puzzle that I was hoping to hit, aside from the one where we saved the Earth from COVID. Are there things on your agenda that you
wanted to talk a little more about the reprotox?
Yes. Well, indeed. We did it, but
Yeah,
what should people be thinking about the fact that we at least know that it...
So the thing, that this signal about the relative concentration of these novel lipids that we've never had before in humans, that we don't have long exposure to in animals, and the signal in this limited rodent study, hopefully, which was not done under good laboratory practices.
It wasn't the real vaccine.
And it wasn't even the RNA encoding spike.
Right. And you couldn't, because you'd want to find out where the spike actually went.
But I spoke to the director of CBER about all this, and he said, that was then. We have a new data package now, and please allow us the respect to evaluate it. Okay. And, Peter Marks is, among the best we have at the FDA. Okay. He's time tested. He's smart. He has integrity. He asked me to, allow them the respect to evaluate the product. And I think we kind of got to give that. But if we go off the data that the Canadians provided to us from that package, that shows the graph that you just showed, we have concentration in ovarian tissue of a novel lipid reagent that is previously untested and has some very unique characteristics. It's an ionizable cationic lipid. We just don't know what that means. Here's the thing. When I first trained about what the history of the FDA is, the thing that is the hallmark of the modern FDA is the response to thalidomide. Okay. And that has guided the whole legislative structure and organizational structure of the FDA. That's all about reproductive toxicity and potential consequences in terms of birth defects. And I hope that Pfizer has submitted to Peter a comprehensive genotoxicity and reproductive toxicity panel in the non-clinical studies, but even then, rats are not humans. And what we've learned is that reproductive risks don't always manifest in the first generation. So I don't mean to scare, but I do mean to speak honestly and with integrity. And I think the honest position is, if you were to ask me, Robert, do you know what the reproductive consequences are for this signal? I have to tell you, no, I don't, because we don't have the data. And if you then ask me, has there been any examples in the past of reproductive effects of agents in female reproductive tissue that were not anticipated by the animal model testing? I would have to say, yes, there is. So I think my position on all of this goes back to the bioethics, if you'll forgive me. There has to be full and open disclosure. I think we do owe it to people, to the audience, to those of us who are facing this crisis and wanting to do the right thing. I think we this gets back to it's your body. I think that the burden is on the government not to tell us what to do, but to convince us based on the information what to do. And I think that they have an obligation. They do have an obligation. This goes back to the bedrocks of bioethics, to full and open disclosure. And in the case of the potential reproductive implications of this aggregating signal in female reproductive tissue, I think that there needs to be transparency. And I think that we have to not assume that reports such as dysmenorrhea, which are occurring, and you can appreciate if you're a young woman and you're having menstrual irregularities, it's kind of embarrassing socially to talk about it. And you're not going to rush off to the internet and go post it, even if you're a millennial. I don't think. So I think that we as a public health community, if I can speak for the public health community, really should err on the side of transparency and disclosure, and trust the American people and the people all over the world, the adults who are competent to make decisions for their own health. And for those adolescents and infants and youth, remember, they cannot give informed consent. They can't. By definition, the only people that can give it for them are their parents and their guardians. And I do feel pretty strongly that these things that I hear about now in multiple cultures, this strategy, we're going to give out ice cream to get the kids to get vaccinated, that's just wrong.
Yeah. No, it's tantamount to evil in light of the
It's wrong.
very scary implications of the
And
data.
we're gonna
also,
look back. We're gonna look back. You know, there's been times when, as a culture facing, as you know, many cultures facing major crises, war and other things, where there's been decisions made to cross ethical lines. And you know, in U.S. history recently, in our experience in World War II, we had the internment camps. Germany's had their experiences, heavens knows, it's easy in the fog of war, and I can tell you from being on the front lines of outbreak response, it is like war. And it's easy to make judgment calls where you say that the benefits merit compromising some of our core ethical principles. And invariably, in retrospect, we end up saying that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it at that.